Hi, my name is Tom Wilson. I'm the priest over at All Saints Episcopal Church here in Southern Shores, North Carolina. This is the sermon that I'll be giving at Maundy Thursday service on the 17th of April, 2014. The lessons we're using are 1 Corinthians 11, 23 through 26, John 13, 1 through 17, and Psalm 116. Well, we tend to remember the gathering of the disciples in the upper room with a great deal of solemnity. When it's filmed in the Bible movies, it's usually shot through a gauzy filter of extreme reverence. But it probably wasn't a staged service, as it was a Passover celebration, and those are meals of great fun. I want to believe that there were moments when they danced wildly around the room and they sang songs of joy. There's a part of the meal where the people sing a song of 15 stanzas, which lists 15 gifts that God's given them. 5 stanzas on how God helped the people in bondage in Egypt, 5 stanzas on how God was with them in the wilderness, and 5 stanzas on how God had been with them in the promised land. And then after each stanza, the people would dance and sing a response, Dayenu, which means even that would have been enough. Even that would have been enough. And it goes like this. If God, blessed be he, had brought us out of Egypt and had not carried out judgments against them, Dayenu, it would have sufficed us. If he had carried out judgments against them and not against their idols, Dayenu, it would have sufficed us. If he had destroyed their idols and not smitten their firstborn, Dayenu. If he had smitten their firstborn and not given us their wealth, Dayenu. If he had given us their wealth and not split the sea for us, Dayenu. If he had split the sea for us and not taken us through it on dry land, Dayenu. If he had taken us through the sea on dry land and not drowned our oppressors in it, Dayenu. If he had drowned our oppressors in it and not supplied our needs in the desert for 40 years, Dayenu. If he had supplied our needs in the desert for 40 years and had not fed us the manna, Dayenu. If he had fed us the manna and not given us the Shabbat, Dayenu, it would have sufficed us. If he had given us the Shabbat and not brought us before Mount Sinai, Dayenu. If he had brought us before Mount Sinai and not given us the Torah, Dayenu. If he had given us the Torah and not brought us into the land of Israel, Dayenu, it would have sufficed us. If he had brought us in the land of Israel and not built for us the temple, Dayenu, it would have sufficed us. But God keeps on giving, and for that we give thanks. This week we're looking at the incorporation in the church, and I've been looking at it in my life. On the church level, we're trying to create a better system of making sure that these people who God calls to our faith community are welcomed and brought into the body of this church. And as we heard at the meeting on Tuesday night, the word incorporation comes from the Latin word corpus, meaning body. Now, I came to the meeting a little bit tired because I had spent the day out of the office at a service of a reaffirmation of my ordination vows, along with most of the other clergy in the diocese. I traveled 3 hours there and 3 hours back, which gave me a lot of time to think about why the heck I ever became a priest. I became a priest because I am, first and foremost, a servant of Christ. And this path was the best way for me to live into that service. Tonight on Maundy Thursday, we conduct our service because we are called to reaffirm our incorporation of Jesus Christ into our lives, and we reaffirm our identity of being servants of the risen Lord. There are 2 parts to this service. The first part is the remembrance of Jesus' institution of the Eucharist during the context of a Passover meal. Passover is a time when the Jewish people would gather together to remember why they were Jews and what it meant that they were Jewish. They remember that their ancestors had a relationship with God and the Spirit of that God which led them out of bondage in Egypt and through the wilderness, where they were fed with bread from divine hands and brought into a promised land, where they would give thanksgiving with the wine that was the fruit of the earth. Even if that would have been enough, Dayenu, Jesus tells them there's more that God continues to do. Jesus takes the bread and reminds his followers that they are still reaffirming that they are heirs to the promise of a relationship with God. that God's Spirit would lead them out of the bondage in which they find themselves, through the wilderness times, which they fear there is not enough for them. Yet in the wilderness they are giving nourishment for the soul from the divine hand, so that they're delivered into a new place of living in the soul, tasting the gifts of God and discovering the true self. Jesus says to his followers to take the bread and wine of the Passover and add another layer of meaning, and see that he, Jesus, is giving his life, his body and blood, so that they might obtain the promises of being children of the living God. The second part of the service is when Jesus demonstrates another way of giving himself to them, and he kneels down and washes their feet as their servant. He urges, indeed commands, that they become what they eat. He urges, as he is the servant of the living God, and they symbolically take him in, his body into theirs, incorporate him into their bodies, so they become servants as well. For the past 30 years, I've reaffirmed my ordination vows on the Tuesday of Holy Week, Dayenu. For the past 40-some years, I have reaffirmed my servant identity almost every year on the Thursday of Holy Week, when I allow my feet to be washed and when I wash another person's feet, Dayenu. And each week, I continue to reaffirm my dependence on the Spirit of the living God, when I commit to taking into my body the promises that God gives us during the Sunday services, Dayenu. Each day, I continue to reaffirm whose I am when I wake up in prayer and go to sleep in prayer to the one who gives me life, Dayenu. God keeps on giving every minute of every day of every year, Dayenu. Thank you.